Hello, everyone.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the pod. Hope your day is going well.
Yeah, and if you're watching us on YouTube, yes, we are wearing the same clothes as last episode because we're recording two in one day, not
And you
just circumstantial.
went from my hair wrap to my soaking wet hair. So we're here for the transformation of my hair.
I have nothing different. Sorry. I'll have
That's
a
fine.
drink of water.
Do you have a win?
Do I have a win? I feel like I don't know if I've used this as a win before. I know we've talked about it, but like I sort of like switched up my coffee routine in that like I have a coffee, like I have my greens, I have a banana, and then I have a coffee, and I drink it out of a travel mug so that it doesn't get cold. And then I drink water, and then I have like my next cup at like 10:30, 11 o'clock. And like spacing that out has been like so great because by the time the one comes around at like 10:30, 11 o'clock, it's not that I need it, it's that I want to have
I
one,
love that.
right? And sometimes it's like when we're outside and we like go for a walk around the block with the dog and whatever. And I'm like, it's just nice to like go for a walk now that it's getting cold and like have this cup of coffee that I'm just enjoying. It's not medicinal, it is purely recreational. And I don't know if that's like just my body is like adjusting to less at one time, or maybe that's like a hormonal thing. You tell me, but I don't hate it.
I love that. Yeah, coffee on an empty stomach can boost our cortisol. So a lot of the time, um, and then high cortisol either increases or decreases hunger. Depends on how high our cortisol was to begin with. So it's just like not great on an empty stomach, as you guys have heard me talk about 1,000 times. So you're usually going to notice more energy, more hunger, less need for that caffeine.
Yeah.
Because especially like coffee being an appetite suppressant, if it's the first thing in our stomach in the morning, it's probably why you're not hungry for breakfast, which probably also means you're low energy, which means you're probably drinking more coffee. So we get this
Right.
nice vicious cycle. So having that
Yeah.
is cool.
I mean, as a parent, I just want to say that like needing less coffee is so great.
Yeah.
I hate feeling like I'm relying on this thing because I do actually just like enjoy it. Like I just want to like I like the way it tastes. I like the warm feeling. I like it warm in my tummy. But to not have to need it is great.
Yeah.
Um,
And
I
I
like
think
that a
you
lot.
and I are kind of the exception of the coffee world. Or maybe I just think we're cooler than everyone else.
We are
Both are probably
100%.
accurate. But I think there's people who drink coffee for energy and there's people who drink coffee because they like coffee. And you and I like actually enjoy
Oh,
a coffee.
I enjoy
You
coffee.
know, like
Just not cold. I mean,
when
not
people are like,
cold.
um, like Starbucks is my favorite coffee. I'm like, okay, so you don't like coffee, you like sugar. Like I think
Yeah.
there's two coffee types of coffee people in the world. The like coffee snobs,
Mhm.
which my friends label me, like the people who truly enjoy a good cup of coffee, and
Mhm.
the people who drink Starbucks. No, like there's no shade to Starbucks, but like you don't like coffee. You like if you tell me your favorite coffee place is Starbucks and your favorite drink
Yeah.
is macchiato, you like sugar, not coffee.
I I go to Starbucks when it's convenient.
And it's
I
delicious. Don't
I'm
get me
not going, yeah, I'm not going to Tim Hortons. Like, just tell me you hate yourself without telling me you hate yourself.
or you were going to
Tim Hortons.
McDonald's. A McDonald's coffee
Mm,
is like
mm,
if I'm not going Starbucks, it's McDonald's. I'm not doing Tim Hortons coffee.
yeah, I don't think I've ever really had a McDonald's coffee. I'm not gonna lie. But yeah, I it's funny that you say that because I've had a Starbucks, like my Starbucks card on my phone has been at like probably $30 for like 3 months and I just haven't gone there. But and I think I've talked about this, we got a new coffee cookie shop in our neighborhood, Bloom. They used to be downtown. But they do coffee. And so sometimes we'll like walk there or whatever after nap and like then snack is taken care of. And I get a coffee. And it's just nice to enjoy a good latte.
It is.
They also made my kiddo a milk steamer last week.
I love that.
And she didn't drink it because she was like, "Why is this warm?" But I have
This
faith
is
that she will be a little
good.
coffee snob.
This is like a weird thing that I pick up on my last tangent around coffee, then I'll share my win. Is especially when you're in mountain towns, you can very quickly identify people who actually like coffee versus not.
Mm,
Drink Starbucks in a mountain town, you don't appreciate good coffee because almost every mountain town has multiple great local coffee shops. And if you're friends with me, you know my rule of we don't drink Starbucks in small towns. We go to like local coffee shops. But people that don't like coffee won't like
mm.
that rule. They will want to do
Yeah,
the
it's
Starbucks.
it's interesting because they just got a Starbucks in Jasper,
Yep.
and I went there a couple times last year because the time that we were leaving, when I was leaving with Just Win, like when Colin was already on the hill, it was too busy at the small coffee shop. But this year, we're gonna all be leaving at the same time, so we'll be back to going to the good place. Which I'm not saying what it is because I don't want y'all to be there when I'm trying to be in line and be there. But if you know, you know.
Yeah.
Um,
And this is what I mean. If you know good coffee, you know good coffee. But my friends that I go to the mountains with and they're like, "You want something from Starbucks?" I'm like,
no.
"No, absolutely not." So, yeah, that's my tangent on being a coffee snob. You can be mad about it if you want. I take pride in being a coffee snob. It's fine. I have a whole drawer in my 700 square foot apartment dedicated to my coffee supplies. So, but my win outside of my love for coffee, it was just in my brain. Oh no. Oh, yeah. I bumped up my step goal like a week ago. I was like, you know what? 10K, easy peasy. Which, if you're listening to that being like, what do you mean easy peasy? It doesn't have to be easy peasy for you. Easy peasy for me. I've been hitting 10K step days for years.
Yeah.
So I was like, fuck it, we're bumping it to 12K. And I've consistently over the last like week and a half hit it every day without a lot of extra intention. Like it's just kind of been because that's usually where I was sitting anyways.
Yeah.
So it's just nice to like reframe that goal and be like, oh, I can still do this. There is some days like today will be one of them because I worked out here, not didn't walk to the gym where I'm gonna have to walk a little bit more. But I think it's good to recognize when your goals are just like super easy, no effort needed, and maybe add a little bit more to it. So it's cool that I've been hitting that.
Yeah.
That's the change.
Nice. Love that. Okay, today, after talking about it forever, we are going to talk a little bit about the business of business. But we're not going to go into like boring details. We're going to get a little bit juicy. We're going to talk about three things that we love and three things we hate about being a business owner.
Yeah. So I know I get a lot of questions. You probably do too, of like people who are curious about running a business or how to do it or how we do it or whatever. We're not telling you how to run a business in this episode.
No, not a business coach.
No. I mean, I could teach you the ways, but you can pay me to do that. But also, if you've ever been like, wow, running a business sounds so glamorous and easy, this episode might change your mind. And we're doing that on purpose because everyone wants the perk of running a business without the work of running a business. So,
Yes,
welcome to the behind the scenes.
several times every week I say to myself, work for yourself, they said. It'll be fun, they said. And then I'm like,
Moments.
yeah.
Yeah.
Let's start with the things we actually like. So number one on my list is making my own schedule slash making the like whatever phase of business I'm in work for the place of my life that I'm in. So like um I don't have any in-person clients at the moment. That is by design because I don't want to have to A, drag my kid anywhere on a regular basis, or B, find childcare on a regular basis. So everything is virtual or online, and I only have appointments available like during nap or like around or after bedtime. That's it. Making my own schedule.
I am very similar, except it's not having to work for someone else. And I know that sounds very obvious, but like, I don't know if I could ever have a boss. Like, I think back to even when we worked at the studio, we worked it together, and like, my brain cannot comprehend someone being like, you have to be here at this time and you have to do X, Y, and Z before you leave. Like, I would literally be like, F you, I'm out. So I don't know if I could actually like default back to having to listen to someone else. And that's maybe it would be different if I like liked the way they ran their business, but I think it would be hard to like go back to, oh yeah, sure, whatever you need, just tell me and I'll get it done. So not having a boss is cool. And just being able to like you said, make your own decision on schedule, how much work I'm doing, how many clients
Mhm.
I'm taking, like having that full control versus having to be forced into the work you're doing is nice.
Yeah. And in my experience as working as like employee or contractor in different facilities, um, they might sell it to you like you have your own business within their business, but you never do. There's always a catch. There's always an overhead that you have to pay them or like rent or things like that. And honestly, just being able to like have like like 100% take home and then divvy it up into where I need to make payments to different things that I use is like, yeah. But my second one was not having to answer to anyone but me. And then I also, this is reminded me from yesterday, I bought a little Christmas ornament of like the mug from The Office that says "World's Greatest Boss"
One time my therapist bought sent me
because
one of those mugs and I died.
because I'm my world's greatest.
That's funny. I literally have a full-size coffee cup of that because my therapist sent it to me when she learned I worked for myself. She was like, here you go. It makes me laugh every time I use it. 'Cause I'm like,
Yeah,
you're right. I am the world's best boss.
I was just like, yeah, I am. Yeah, I'm like, yeah. I laughed so hard and I bought it and I was like, I'm doing this. I am the world's greatest boss.
I love that. Um, what do I love? What else do I love about running my own business? Um, Getting to make my business whatever I want it to be. And I know that probably sounds obvious, but I am a weird coach in this industry. And I tell people that all the time. Like, I am a holistic fat loss coach. In most people's eyes, those two things don't go together. Most holistic coaches are very intuitive eating, all natural, organic, blah, 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 blah. Cool, great. I also pay attention to those things in my coaching. Most fat loss coaches are like workout 7 days a week, protein powder with every meal, chicken, broccoli, rice. I fall somewhere in the middle. And if I was to go and find a place of work to work at, I probably wouldn't find what I would want. Like, people would want me in one space or the other. So
Mhm.
having the ability to make my business exactly what I want it to be and cater to a niche of women that I know need the support but haven't been able to find it because it doesn't really exist has been cool. I recognize that because when I'm working with um, my like account manager with the new company I'm working for, he was like, "Okay, cool. For your website, we need transformation pictures." And I was like, "Yeah, I don't do that." He was like, "What do you mean?" I was like, I don't put my clients' transformation pictures places." And he was like, "You're a fat loss coach that doesn't use transformations to advertise." And I was like, "Correct." He was like, "That's fascinating. And you get fat loss clients?" I'm like, "Yeah, because I don't think the physical before and after has anything to do with the process of losing fat. And my clients that work with me experience fat loss. They tell their friends work with me, blah, blah, blah. I don't need to throw your half naked body all over the internet to get the business. But that's definitely not the norm. So being able to
Mhm.
make it my own thing in this space has been cool.
Yeah, I agree. I really like being able to decide like how many clients I want/need. And there's a difference there, but um and just like the type of people that I will coach. There's definitely times in my coaching career that I've had clients that I'm like, "Ah, I just like, like you just kind of dread the time that you're spending with them, especially if it's in person, but you did it because you need the money or you needed the manager was like, you have to coach this person or whatever. So um being able to decide like who those ideal clients are and then really like owning the marketing that only attracts those people anyways, is really cool. But my last one, and I think you'll agree with this, and I thought this was also very funny, not as funny as my mug, but no staff meetings.
I have
This
a staff meeting
this
every day with me and my dogs.
yeah, this weekly podcast recording is probably the closest thing that I will get to a staff meeting.
Mhm.
Besides the time that I spend with myself thinking of what I'm going to do, or the time I spend bitching to my husband about running a business. But yeah, like I think we talked about this before, where we're like you're like my only colleague. Like, just the idea of like I just remember like sometimes like you'd get an email and it would be like mandatory staff meeting 4 p.m.
Unpaid,
Saturday, and you'd be like,
unpaid.
what the fuck is this?
It would be like
And
snacks
of
will
course,
be provided, and it
and
would be like donuts or
and like
muffins from Tim Hortons.
and like listen, like I get that like when you have staff, you need to make sure people are on the same page. But do you know how many staff meetings I've attended that could have been an email?
That meme
So
is my
many.
favorite. It's like this meeting could have been an email.
Yeah, 100%. Um, or like, like nobody has ever left a staff meeting and been like, that was so fun.
My only, I will say, and this is very niche, and you'll know it because you have a kid. My only staff meetings that I was like, heck yeah, were when I worked for Sport Ball. And that's just because that organization as a whole is fun. And Luke Labrato, the owner, is like one of the coolest humans on this planet. So like our staff meetings were crazy. Like so many snacks. We would play games. We would usually like go somewhere and like we would talk work also, but like we would have like a dodgeball tournament before the staff meeting. Like those were the only, and when he was like, we'll provide snacks, it was like an array of food choices. So those were the only ones where I was like, sign me up. I will always be at those staff meetings. And he paid us. I think we should abolish unpaid staff meetings because if you want my time, you're going to pay for it. So we got paid,
Yeah.
fed, and got to play games. So if you ever want staff meetings that are fun, go work for Sport Ball. That's all I have to say.
Yeah. Yeah, I can't say I
My,
ever had a fun staff meeting ever.
you just gotta find like that. I mean, you can work for Sport Ball forever, I guess, but it's got like no corporate staff meetings are gonna be fun. So, my last like love, I have lots of loves of running a business, but my biggest one is not having to commute to work. And this is more like the perks of working from home versus running a business. But I live downtown for a reason. I touch my car once, maybe twice a week, and it's to go to my parents to go eat free food usually. So like I don't drive, period, but I don't have to commute to work. Everyone's starting to stress about winter, snow, winter tires, but I don't have to worry about any of that because I literally don't have to leave my house ever if I don't want to. My work is here, my gym is here, and then I could go walk my dog. I walk most places living downtown, but not having the stress of like, oh my God, I have to be at work by 8 a.m. tomorrow, especially in the winter, is a beautiful thing.
Yeah, yeah. I also enjoy that. Um, One thing that I didn't mention that I think both of us probably enjoy is like being able to book appointments like in the middle of the day. Me, not in the middle of the day because between 12 and 2, I cannot leave my home because it is nap time and nap time is sacred. But most other appointments, it's like, yeah, what times are available? And then we just like it's just so great that
I
way.
went and finished my calf tattoo at noon on a Wednesday yesterday.
Yeah.
And my dad also goes to my tattooist and he's getting a tattoo. And he was mad because I got booked in before him. And I was like, first of all, I've been here longer. And second of all, I can show up at noon on a Wednesday and you can't. So that is why that happened.
Oh my God, that's so funny. Okay. Things that we don't like. Okay. Making big scary decisions and being the only one who is like responsible ultimately for the success or the demise.
Yeah. You're like, this is either the greatest decision I've ever had, or we're going down in flames. And you just cross your fingers.
Yeah. And like, I feel pretty good. Like most of the time I can like talk to you, or I have a couple close friends that I talk to about like the big decisions and things like that. But like not having somebody to be like, do you think this is a good idea?
Or just having someone
Um,
to be like, this is what's happening. Get
yeah.
on board.
And truly like I guess out of those people that I do talk to, you're the only person who actually understands like the impact that the decision I'm trying to make could make, because I don't I don't have anybody else that does the same thing. Like, right? Like, other people, yes, they're making decisions at work, but it doesn't really contribute to the success or the demise of the entire company. So like backstory, just recently I was making some like back end and pricing changes and I was like, everyone's gonna leave me. And Jill was like, it's fine. Like, and I had some questions about some like admin stuff in the payment system. And I know Jill used it and she was really helpful. And I was like, nobody else would know this. Um, but also one of my other friends said, you're allowed to raise your prices. You are not a Costco hot dog. And I really appreciated that take.
I also appreciate that take. Yeah, I think having that support network is like underrated because it is scary. And that's like with the company I'll be working with, they have a whole team behind the scenes that I can be like, excuse me, good idea or terrible idea? And they can guide me in the right direction. So I agree with that. This is gonna sound backwards. One of my least favorite things of running my business is being on social media. And
Mm,
that's going to sound backwards because I work with companies on TikTok. Like social media is part of my income, not just a way to run my business. Like at this point in my life, it is part of my income. And I don't, maybe I should get more specific. I actually enjoy the social media work I do on TikTok more. Because I find TikTok's just easier. You can throw
hmm.
things up there. You don't have to put as much thought in, blah, blah, blah. I'm trying to work on shifting that mindset so my Instagram and TikTok are more similar, but I digress. Having to constantly be like, what do I post? What do I need to put up there? I need to make the graphic. I got to make sure I have a picture that goes with it. Then I got to write the caption. Then I got to tag the people. Then I got to remember to post it. Like that constant background of like, what are we doing on social media? Is one of my least favorite parts of running a business because it doesn't end. You can't just throw up one post on Instagram and be like, business done. Like it always has to be a thing. You always have to be creating something new. And it gets easier with time, but it's just that constant like hum in the background of like, what are we doing on social media today?
Yeah. Yeah. It can be tough. I feel like sometimes when I make time to create, that's when I'm not feeling very creative.
Yeah.
And when I am feeling creative, I don't have time to be. So constant dilemma, which kind of leads into my number two, which is some of the non-coaching tasks are brutal and very unfun. Um, you know, like if you're not into, like basic graphic design on Canva, that sucks for you, but it is kind of a necessary. Or like if you don't like basic accounting, owning a business might not be for you. If you're doing your invoicing, not necessarily by hand, I guess, but like if you're actively sending the invoices, that is something that has to happen. When you're filing things into for your taxes in different categories, I even use an app and it's still like, bleh, like I just really don't want to. You're always kind of thinking about like, do I need to be offering a different offer? Do I need to create that offer? Do I already have something? Do I, am I going to make it into a lead magnet? Am I going to like have a webinar? Am I going to like Do I have an email list? Do I nurture that email list? Have I sent them an email lately? Um, there's things within stuff like that that do, and I've talked about this a little bit because I was learning all of this, but like things that happen automatically. So somebody downloads something and then they get they're into an email sequence that's trying to sell them something else or like whatever. Like, um, a client leaves. Okay, now I have to either go to my wait list or like find a new client or, like there's lots of things that are not coaching related, really. But if you don't do them, you're not gonna have any clients to coach.
Yeah. You don't really have a business to run. So,
But yeah, some stuff is very unfun and some stuff is like I don't actually mind. It's funny you should say that. I actually don't mind the Instagram stuff and the actual posting. TikTok and like Reels, sometimes I'm like, fuck. Maybe that's like an age thing. But did you know you can schedule your posts on through Canva? Yeah.
yeah.
So you don't actually have, you can just schedule them in advance.
You can also schedule them right in Instagram now.
Oh, oh,
Which does make life slightly easier. But yeah, that constant, like all the background things that people don't see happen, not fun. My second one was just straight up taxes. Like if you like getting a tax return every year, don't run a business.
oh yeah, no.
I haven't seen that in years. Years.
Yeah.
If
What are you?
you don't like paying out during tax season, don't run a business. But if you're gonna run a business, get a good accountant. I have had some shit luck with accountants.
You really have.
2 years
like
in a row, I hired
like the
small business accountants and they just forgot to file my GST, which if you're like, what do you mean? As business owners, we collect GST off of everyone all year, and then we have to pay it out to the government, government sales tax. My accountants just said, oops, we didn't do that. So then the CRA said, hey, we need a bunch more money for you. So get an accountant you trust and is actually good with their job. But if you are going to cry about paying taxes every year rather than getting a tax return, it might not be the vibe. I cry. Well, I didn't cry this past year, actually, but I cried a lot the year before. So moral of the story, if you like getting money from the government during tax season, it's not going to happen anymore. But also get a good accountant or it's going to be a very bad time for you.
If you like getting money from the government at all, don't run your own business. So like everybody who's ever asked me, how is mat leave going? I love to see some of that EI because it doesn't exist. So government of Canada, if you're listening, maybe have something that small business owners can pay into themselves to create EI for themselves. That'd be great because I would have started doing that years before I got pregnant and I would have had something to fall back on. But instead we have this, and I'm going to hop up on my soapbox here. Instead, we expect new moms to just bounce back, for lack of a better word, and just work. I was working 2 or 3 days from my couch, but after giving birth. Would have been nice to just not have to think about it, but I did have to think about it because I had clients that were relying on me and I had money to be made because I had bills to pay. So sucks. It sucked during COVID. It sucked. Man, I'm so glad you brought this up today because we got the shit end of this. Was it in this episode or a different episode? I think it was the one we recorded before. We're still talking about it. We got the shit stick during COVID.
Cherry on top of COVID was I collected whatever CERB, is that what it was called?
I think so.
The government gave you money for not being able to work. I collected it 2 times. So what was that? $4,000? Or was it 2,000 every time? I don't remember. These are the parts of COVID I've blocked out of my mind.
I don't remember.
It bumped me tax brackets. Those 2 CERB payments that I took. So then I got like royally screwed the tax season right after COVID lockdown. And this is honestly just like the cherry on top.
And I feel like OG podcast listeners will remember these accounting horror stories from Jill.
It was a test.
Because
Listen, we have a great accountant now. His name's Theo. If you're a business owner and you need a good accountant, I got you. But it took me a hot minute to get here. So if you want to run a business, find a good accountant and maybe learn like a couple things about taxes yourself too, so that you can know when things are not being done properly. Do you have a final one of your dislikes of running a business?
yes. But I would also like to add in a little Schitt's Creek reference here and just say that nobody pays for it. You write it off.
That's my
Um,
sister. My sister says that all the time. Like she's like, "What's business expense?" I'm like, it makes me mad because I'm like, that's not how it works. But
the
I
funny
wish it
thing
was.
is that I say that, but I truly know like it's not. I just say it to piss my husband off.
Yeah.
I'll just be like, "Well, it's a write off," and he'll be like, and I'll be like, "Don't worry, nobody pays for it. You write it off." And he's just like, "That's not how." And I'm like, "Nobody pays for it. You
Let me
write it
pretend
off."
that's how it works for a second.
Anyways, ask me how I got a treadmill for my gym last year. I had some I had some business expenses at the end of the year. Anyways, my last one is that some people will just never understand what we do. I have family members who are just like, I mean, nobody really understands that being a stay-at-home mom is also a full-time job. But usually when people ask me what I do, I'm like, I have two full-time jobs. And they're like, you do? And I'm like, yeah. I'm a business owner and a stay-at-home mom. And they're like, oh, so like what's your business? And they're like, oh, so you just do that. I'm like, no, 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 no. I am raising a tiny human, which we as a society have determined is not worth any amount of money, yet we pay for other people to take care of our children. Doesn't make sense to me that
But we also like,
we don't think that that's a job. It is a job.
I mean, teachers also get the shit end of the stick though too. So
Unpaid labor.
it's just a
Anything to do with the
common.
raising of the children is yeah, we just determine is not a real job.
Yeah.
Because we also pay childcare workers shit as well. And I have a business. But I guess like what I'm trying to say is like people generally understand what a personal trainer is, but when you're not in person at a gym somewhere, people are just like, I don't understand what you do. Like I don't understand why people are like, you're on your phone all the time. I'm like, well, you know, I have to respond to my clients sometimes, right? Like I can't just ignore them. They'll stop paying me if I do that. And sometimes it's not urgent and I can leave it, and sometimes it is, right? And you just have to kind of, or if you're like me, you just work whenever you're given a sliver of time, like nap time,
Mhm.
or things like that. So um, yeah, but I think people don't understand like that just because we're like on our phones, maybe like responding to an Instagram comment or like responding to a DM about inquiring about coaching. It's like there are things that if we do them in a timely manner, the chances of getting that client are like so much higher. Because what if they've DM'd like five other coaches, and you don't respond for 24 hours? I'm not saying that you have to respond super soon, but sometimes it's nice to be like, hey, love to hear from you. Zing, here's a link to the coaching application just to get it in front of them, or to answer a question or something like that, right? Like, again, not saying that you have to drop everything and answer your DMs, but sometimes being a little bit more timely does pay off.
My last least favorite thing about running a business, and this is specifically when I tell people I'm a nutrition coach, is I get the same response. And it
Mm.
tends to be the same response from like middle-aged men. Um,
It's always middle-aged men.
oh, I could really use your help. First of all, no thank you. Second of all, you're not going to follow through. Third of all, I don't care. And I say that in the nicest way, but nobody who has ever said that to me in passing. Actually, that's not true. One time, my boss at a landscaping company I worked for knew what I did part no, like 2 years after I stopped working there. He obviously knew what I was going to school for when I worked at the landscaping company, drunk texted me at like 2 a.m. one night and was like, "Hey, Jill, I need to hire you as my personal trainer." And I replied in the morning and I was like, "Great, would love to have you. Here's the information." He trained with me for like 5 years, but he's the only male who has ever followed through with that statement. But it's just like my least favorite sentence of like, "Oh, well, I could really use your help in that department." Or if you're like out
Yeah.
food with people and they find out what you do and they're like, "Oh, great. So you're going to judge my nutrition choices." And most of the time I'm like, "No, because I don't care." And I don't say that to be
Mhm.
like, "You're not my client.
Yeah.
I don't
Even
care."
if you were my client, I'm not gonna like this isn't this isn't a I don't need a trainer as much as I need somebody to slap me when I'm reaching
Yeah.
for the chips. Like that's
But
not the
also
kind of
like,
coaches that we are.
it's not my job to make sure you hit your nutrition. You're actually not paying me to care about
Mhm.
your nutrition. So I don't.
Yeah.
Therefore, I do not care.
Yeah. I do find it interesting when people are like I'm sure it happens to like physios and stuff too, where they're like, "Oh yeah, like I my physio said that my glutes aren't firing, so yeah, like you could like write me a program," and it's like, I could. This is how much it costs. And they're like, but like, we're pals. Or like, but like, we're family. And I'm like, yeah, um, this ain't like yeah, no, you have to pay me for my brain. You can't
My
just
yeah. My
like
response to
my
anyone,
own parents pay me to program for them. Do if they follow through, not my problem.
yeah.
Not
My
my problem.
response to anyone who's like, "Oh, so you could just like do that for me," and then they don't want to pay. I'm like, "Great, would you do your job for free?" And then they're usually like, "No." And I'm like, "Great, so I'm not going to do mine for free. Glad we had this
Yeah.
conversation."
I feel like there's certain jobs, and I feel like they're all the jobs that are like the taking care of like the like doctors, nurses, physios, coaches. They're all those kinds of jobs and people want they're like, "Well, I have this lump," or like, "I have a rash," or like, um, "Can you check out my shoulder? It's been hurting." And it's like, I don't know if it's like it just happens, like, people are like, "Yeah, sure," because, like, we're just nice, we tend to be nice people. We want to help people, but, like, we need to stop doing that. And we as, like, a whole, um, like, usually when people are talking about, like, their training plans, like, in front of me or something, and they're like, like, let's say, like, bike people, and they'll be like, "Yeah, I should really strength train," and I'm like, "Yeah, probably should." They're like, "What would you do?" And I'm like,
Pay me.
You know, stuff." Like, I'm like, "I give you nothing." Or like, "What do you think of this?" I'm like, It's probably fine."
Yeah. Well,
But I'm
that's
not giving you my professional stuff unless you're a client.
you could talk to my
Um,
mom about this all day. She's been the designated I have a rash person in our family for probably her whole life. My mom's a nurse, for those who
oh,
people
Vic.
don't know, like the amount of text and phone calls she gets and inquiries of like, "What should I do about this?" She's like, "I don't know. I'm not a doctor." Like, and like, I even if she does know, like my mom is a very kind lady, so she will help when she can. But she has been the designated I have a problem, my kid's sick, what do I do person for like her
Mm,
whole life. So she would probably also appreciate if that didn't happen. And most people will be happy to help um, if given the opportunity, but let us be the deciders of if we want to help or not
yeah,
versus like
yeah.
assuming we will.
Yeah, my when I was first like, I don't know, a while ago, like years ago, my mom was like, "Can you write a stretching program for your dad?" So I did. Whatever, printed it out, sent it to him by email. There's links to videos to follow, whatever. And then maybe a couple years later, she asked me again, and I was like, "What happened to the first one? Did he do it?" And she's like, "I don't think so." And I was like, "Why don't you start there?"
Yeah, I already did this one.
It's like you
uh,
get one chance.
yeah. Especially with family. I'm like, "Oh, I did it for you for free once and you took advantage of that. Well, it's going to cost you triple what it costs anyone else now then." uh,
It's not a family discount. It's a it's a
an,
family upgrade.
an inconvenience fee. you're now paying more. So
An inconvenience fee.
I use inconvenience fees a lot in my life, whether it's like with anyone. I'm just like, ooh, you've inconvenienced me before. That's gonna add something to our next interaction. I can promise you that.
Oh, now
So
there's an interesting concept.
yeah, like if
Um,
I send my sister to get groceries and then she doesn't get them all, and then I have to go to the store and get more, I'm like, inconvenience fee. It's gonna
hmm.
cost you. So
So do you just shoot her an invoice
we
or?
like settle bills at the end of the month together over here, but it's just something to be aware of like, hey, has this person done the same thing to me multiple times? Maybe I should log that away as an inconvenience fee in the future. So I'm sure
Yeah.
we could talk for days about the pros and cons of running a business, but I know I have a couple friends that are interested in like starting side hustles, not in the health and fitness way, but they've asked about what I do. I'm sure you get questions all the time about how to run your business. So if you've ever thought about it, I hope today kind of gave you an inside scoop of like, this is really great, this is not so great.
Yeah, I will tell you a couple things for a fee. An inconvenience fee.
But if you ever have, and if you're listening to the podcast and you already listened to this episode, but speaking of inconvenience fees, if you ever have a question for us and you're not in a place to pay us for the information, we get it, but
No,
we have
we didn't mean you guys. Yes, when we ask you to ask us questions, we're
asked.
giving you free coaching. Yes, that is one of the reasons why we have the podcast is because if you guys have questions, um, other people probably have them too. And we love answering your guys' questions because a lot of you guys have turned into clients, which is lovely. And if you never turn into a client, that's okay too. We want you guys to get good quality information without like being like, is that even true? We want to give you guys the truth all the time.
Yeah.
So you don't have to go to other people to be like, I don't know if this is true, or you don't have to go to Google. Yeah, we want you guys to ask us questions.
But what I was
And
gonna say was that if you have a question and you're not in a place to pay, look at people's free resources first. That's why
like
we have social
podcasts.
media. That's why we have podcasts. That's why we put out free info. I love you guys so much, but my pet peeve is when I get a DM being like, hey, can you recommend what I should do for gut health? And I have 47,000
Yeah.
posts on my feed about gut health. If you're not in a position to pay for advice, you got to do a little bit of work yourself. And then if you
Yeah.
can't find the answer, ask. But if you can scroll twice on my page and find 7 posts on gut health, you better have read those first before you're in my DMs asking for free advice.
Yeah. Looking for resources that we already have, like I have a couple webinars that are absolutely free. We have the podcast. We have well over 100 episodes now on all different topics. Even if you're like, did you guys ever do an episode on this? I'm happy to just be like, yes, you can go find it. It's probably around this time, or I can even just quickly go send it to you. But um, because sometimes the titles aren't always whatever. But if we haven't done it, we'll do it. And then you'll have a resource that's free. Um,
And those are our
so,
tips to avoiding an inconvenience fee.
and also, I'm just putting it out there. I'm going to start just sending the podcast to my family.
Yeah.
So, note to self, stop complaining about the family on here. Don't
Or a subtle way for them to get the hint. They'll figure it out eventually.
Yes, but also if you have people in your life that maybe you're like a gym girly and you have people that are like, oh, you know stuff about the gym. I'm just going to ask you. And you're like, I don't really know the answer to this. Send them to the pod. We will answer the questions. We've got some great ones on, well, fitness and nutrition. That's generally what we talk about. But we also have a lot of ones on like habits and self care. And Jill's got quite a few on like where to start with fat loss, supplements, things like that. This is all like, I don't know. We've talked about this before, but like starting this podcast has been so great for having that free resource to just shoot to people because we can have the same conversations in our DMs with people like over and over all week long, all month long, all year long. But to be like, oh, actually, I have a podcast about that. Here it is.
And most people who have discovered our podcast do have positive feedback about like learning things yourself without having to pay, without having to look for it. So
Yeah.
take a scroll, send it to friends, whatever. We always appreciate the share, the follows, the comments, the questions, all that jazz. If you're looking for like where to find us, podcast Instagram is at Lattes and Lifting Podcast. In that bio, you will find a direct link to every single platform our podcast is on. So could not make it any easier for you
No,
to find what you need. If you need me, you can find me at coachjill.april on Instagram and TikTok.
and if you need me, you can find me at JLock Fitness on all the socials. And don't forget, you can watch us or look for us on YouTube if you would like to see our beautiful faces.
And we will catch you guys next time.
Bye.